Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the program. We are only 1 week into that branch of the timeline that includes Donald Trump as President of the United States, and it has already become almost a cliche in journalistic circles, if not a cliche already, that Donald Trump, who promised to drain the swamp in Washington of lobbyists and career politicians, has actually done the opposite. He is using the denizens of that swamp as his trusted advisors, as his top team members, as his targeted designees, whether it's lobbyists, whether it's business executives who'll get even richer through the government posts he seems to be ready to give them, whether it's career politicians, washed up Washington hacks, whoever it is, those denizens of the swampy deep are showing up in the Trump transition team. Get ready for the big tour, folks, because the reptiles are taking over. In fact, let's take a little tour of Trump Swamp. Let's get in our little glass bottom boat and look around at exactly who we're talking about here. But be careful. Don't mind the view, but keep your hands and fingers inside the boat if you can. Okay, and please don't feed the Gators. Okay, first of all, although I want to talk more about his Donald Trump's appointments or possible appointments that are going to exploit the government for personal gain, it is hard to get past the guy who publishes white nationalists and promotes hate and bigotry. I'm talking, of course, about Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon, as publisher of Breitbart.com, is considered an avatar and a distributor of the alt-right. But I don't like the term alt-right because, to me, it makes what he does sound like something new. And when what Steve Bannon does is as old as the hills, it's called hate. Now, when you think about the people who have been cheering Steve Bannon's selection, white supremacist Jared Taylor said that he thought that Steve Bannon would be an anti-waffler, meaning someone who, I suppose, who keeps ideological and racial purity in the Trump administration. The head of the American Nazi Party said perhaps the Donald is for real. Time will tell. But let's also think about some of the other people Trump is looking at. If, as Elizabeth Warren says, personnel is policy, then Trump's policy is clearly plunder. Think about billionaire Steve Mnuchin. He is a leading contender for Treasury Secretary. As we first noted last August on this program, he ran a mortgage lending outfit called One West that was investigated for its abusive treatment of homeowners and other borrowers. In fact, one group did a study on his group and asked them to study its abuse and racial discrimination in foreclosures, and specifically cited unreasonable foreclosures of widows. So Donald Trump is basically considering a silent movie villain for Secretary Treasury. And then, of course, he was also pursuing the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, for the role. Dimon turned him down because he probably couldn't face Elizabeth Warren again in the hearings. But JP Morgan Chase is a cesspool of serial fraud. These are the kinds of people he picked. But, let's talk about Wilbur Ross. Wilbur Ross is considered the leading contender for Commerce Secretary. He's already out there reassuring investors that the one decent thing Trump talked about doing, which was keeping us out of bad trade deals, won't really happen. Ross is a specialist in what they call distressed assets, which really means basically doing to companies what the aliens in Independence Day do to planets, which is to go in, strip them of their resources, and leave them ruined, bare, and depopulated. That's the guy Trump wants for Commerce Secretary. And speaking of stripping planets bare for personal greed, let's think about Trump's environmental picks. Forrest Lucas, frontrunner for Secretary of the Interior, digs up the land he would be asked to protect, but he's not a one-dimensional candidate. He also hates animals and has, for example, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars defending puppy mills from political attack. It goes on and on. You've got this guy, Ebell, who says he doesn't believe in climate change. The press called him a climate contrarian. That's like calling a flat earther a geography contrarian. He is an industry-paid crank and extremist. These are the people that your new president wants to appoint. We've got to either stop them or beat them next time around. I'm Richard RJ Eskow for the Zero Hour.